Hello, I'm Doug, and welcome to the Crew of Japan podcast, a weekly podcast where we take you on audio journeys through Japanese culture. Welcome back to the podcast. While I'm not physically in Japan right now, I know for sure there are two staples to summertime in Japan: humidity out of the wazoo and summertime festivals. And that's right, today we are just going to talk about that right there. Natsu Matsuri Mania! Okay, that was a little bit over the top, but you get the picture. Whether it's June, July, or August, there's always a primo opportunity to experience the Japanese festival scene across the country. Today, we are going to highlight some of those festivals throughout the country that you may or may not be personally aware of or have personally experienced, but someday, hopefully, as soon as those borders open, you'll be able to revisit and try it out yourself. Let this episode be your one-stop shop for summer festival fun in Japan. So get your handkerchief, your fan, or whatever else you need to stay not sweaty as hell, and let's get to those festivals. All right, so we are back with the podcast as always. I mean, we are always back. It's why we're here.
Nice.
And as you can tell, I'm here with Jen. Hey, Jen.
Hey, sup?
How you doing?
Doing good. Ready to talk about some summer festivals. That's what I'm ready.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
It's totally a vibe in Japan during the summer, you know?
It really is. It really is. And when we're recording this, it's middle of June, so we've already kind of missed a chunk of the summer festivals already that take place in June. But fortunately, this episode will be stored so that it can be listened to next year ahead of summer festivals, so that way people can come back to it and get some ideas at that point in time. So what we're going to do for you today is kind of break down some of the summer festivals that you can attend in Japan, month by month. So June, July, and August. Those are the peak months, I feel like, of summer, where you are drenched in sweat when you walk out the door anywhere in Japan at this point. And then we're going to talk about some other things too. Essential items that you need to prepare when going to a summer festival. Some things that the government's actually doing to help preserve festivals. And then our own personal experiences with festivals in Japan. What we're going to start off with first is talking about festivals in the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic is still the elephant in the room for a lot of reasons. At this point in time, tourism is starting to gradually open up loosely. The opposite of loosely, tightly in Japan, with small tour groups being able to come over and follow strict guidelines for traveling around and visiting sites. But, in Japan, I mean, festivals are a big thing in Japan, not necessarily for tourists, but also domestic travelers and people in the community. And a lot of festivals had to be canceled throughout the pandemic over 2020, 2021, and even some of this year. We'll cover that in a little bit. Last November, I want to say it was November, in the Yomiuri Shimbun, there was an article where the Cultural Affairs Agency had actually decided to earmark $6.5 billion. Not dollars, yen. It's a big difference there.
That's quite a few dollars off. So yeah, definitely.
And those dollars back in November, and it's probably a lot less dollars now with the way the yen's trending right now. But they set aside a supplementary budget for the fiscal year of 2021, and I'm assuming that's going to continue into 2022 to help with preserving some of these traditions in Japan. Some of those preservation acts are setting up consultation sections within the division to handle matters for, let's say, float repairs or costumes or other equipment that's necessarily needed, like stages and logistical items needed for these festivals. Another thing that they're trying to do, which I thought was really cool, is promoting the use of digital technology to record these events, not only for preservation purposes and storing and passing down those traditions generation to generation in the future, but also to stream them live to help attract potential travelers in the future, which I think is pretty cool, because a lot of areas in Japan, especially the smaller communities where they may have only one big festival in their community a year, those can be a major pull in terms of domestic travelers or even international. travelers once they're admitted into the country at a more readily and steady pace. But I think that's a really cool thing. And it's really important because some of these communities, due to just natural, people migrating out of communities, the aging population, some of these traditions may be lost due to just these communities may be diminishing in size and just in population. So having the ability to store these digitally and preserve them, but also support them as they're trying to bounce back, because I'm sure a lot of the cities' budgets have been slightly slashed due to the pandemic.
Indeed.
So this is going to be really beneficial, and I thought it was really cool, and just wanted to point it out as the government acknowledging that it's something that needs to be preserved, and they acknowledge that it's a big part of Japan's allure and attraction for outside and external tourism, people coming out from other countries to come to Japan to see these events.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I feel like from a tourist perspective, summer is very underrated. Not a lot of tourists think of coming to Japan during the summer. And if they do, I feel like summer festivals have gained a notion that, it's only in late summer. But like we said, it starts in June, actually. So yeah. I feel like a lot of people really skip out on coming to Japan during early summer, which is a shame, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on in June and July, but a lot of people kind of focus on August. But,
yeah, August is definitely the sweet spot, I feel like. End of July, early August is really, and early to middle of August is really like that. A lot of people kind of see or think of summer festivals and pin it on specifically on Obon. That festival time or time of year. But before we get into the breakdown of months for the different festivals, let's talk about some essential items for summer festivals. What do you need? What should you partake in when you go? First off, let's talk about like clothing. I mean, you can go in normal clothes. People do. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of people rocking the jinbei or a yukata. And when I say yukata, it's not only women who wear yukata, guys also wear yukata as well. I feel like I like the jinbei because they're very thin and very breathable fabric, so it's much more comfortable in the summer months. But that's, in my opinion, clothing wise, probably the must. If you're going to really get into the mood, I like to partake in, when I go, I like to feel like I'm part of the atmosphere, and that kind of adds to it.
Yeah, when I take them over the summer for study abroad, they usually try to either buy their own yukata, which you can get relatively cheap at like Daiso, or they have like those packet sets, like pretty much starter set of yukata.
Yeah, you can go to get like, I want to say used clothing stores or
yeah, that too. You go to a used like kimono shop and they'll have stuff. But also they have rental places. A lot of cities will have rental yukatas, and they'll even like put it on for you if you're like unsure of how to do that. So my students, they really take advantage of, dressing the part.
Yeah, and another one, that's a good point that you said, the rental places, but also if you could find a department store, usually department stores have, during those times, pretty good deals and pretty good selection of items. I want to say usually I've gotten my yukata from department stores, just because they have a lot of obi, they have a lot of the actual yukata themselves, and then they have a lot of the accessories to go with it. So you kind of mix and match.
I go to used like secondhand store for yukata.
I mean, that's definitely good, stuff. But if maybe you can't find one, the department stores are always kind of a good, and they're not too, you can find affordable options there for what you're looking for. And I think also another thing is a fan.
Bring a fan with you. It's going to be hot.
Definitely want to bring a fan. An uchiwa.
Pretty much just go into like a 7-Eleven or some kind of convenience store and just buy all like the necessities of like avoiding a heat stroke. Like those cooling packets, those like mint wipes that you can use, those are great. And like everything. Just buy everything.
Once you get to the festival, I would say there's very unique food items. I know I don't want to say unique, but there's definitely items that you're going to be able to find at a festival. Yeah. You're going to find your Hiroshima style okonomiyaki. you're going to find your yakisoba, your takoyaki, your chocolate bananas, your, what else?
Kakigori.
Kakigori. There you go. How can I
love
forget kakigori?
kakigori.
I mean, that's
it's
that's
my
the big one.
That's such a summer festival.
Oh, yeah.
Summer in general. That's a
How did
summer.
I even think about that?
I'm always because it's sweets, and I'm always thinking about sweets. So
Yeah. And then obviously you can get your ramen. You can get your beer if you're a beer person. I obviously who I am at this point. If you listen to the podcast enough, I'm a beer guy. So I like to partake in that. And then I think the most important thing to have is an open mind and willingness to participate, because there may be, depending on the festival you go to, there may be a parade or a dance or something like that. And a lot of times, especially if you're a traveler or a visitor, you may have the unique opportunity to participate in those festivals. And I think that's something that is really, it can create a good memory for you. And it's fun for the community, because you may be one of the few foreigners that actually shows up and does that. And it's fun for them, because they want to share their experiences and their culture and their community and their traditions with you as well.
Yeah, and I will say this for people who've never been to a summer festival in Japan. It's very different from like the festivals here in the US. And when I say festivals, I mean like, those school festivals that we have over here. It's very different. Take summer festivals in Japan with a slow pace, especially if you're trying to rock a yukata, because you're probably wearing geta, which are those like really uncomfortable wooden sandals. Just take things slow. You don't have to rush. You don't have to go anywhere. It's all good. Just take your time. Maybe have a sit down when you grab like your yakisoba or your kakigori, and just take it very chill. Don't stress out about like trying to get everything done.
Yeah. And just, it could be a big festival, it could be a small festival. And I think the most important part is just taking it all in and enjoying the atmosphere, because it is a fun, different atmosphere. It's one of the things that I enjoy most about going back to Japan in the summers, and why I try to make my rounds to a few of the local festivals when I'm in where I used to live in my wife's mother's community. Try to enjoy where I can, because I really do think that it's a unique part of Japanese culture that I personally enjoy.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we've got the essential items out of the way, the kind of things to think about and considerations for when you're going to a festival, let's jump into the festivals themselves. And we're going to, like I said earlier, we're going to break this down by month. So we're going to cover June, and we're only going to cover a few per month, because there are plenty. And there also are resources on the internet where if you wanted to search and find out more, you can. But we're going to kind of cover some of the heavy hitters, and then also some other ones that, whether or not we've had our own unique experiences with, or maybe have some relationship with, we'll share those as well. So for June, the first one we're going to talk about is something that maybe you've heard of, Jen, I'm not sure. Yosakoi. Have you heard of Yosakoi before?
I have.
Okay, so the Yosakoi Soran festivals in Sapporo in Hokkaido. So our favorite island of Hokkaido that everyone loves. It's based off of actually a festival from Kochi Prefecture, and a prominent feature of these dances that they do at the Yosakoi Soran Festival is these little clappers, like hand clappers that they use. And ironically, I think that they use these hand clappers traditionally back in the day, were used to scare away birds in the fields. That was what they were used for originally. Now they're obviously more of an accompaniment to the music itself, the Soran Bushi melodies that they hear while they're dancing through the streets. So this festival itself is a multi-day event in early June that, prior to COVID, attracted millions of visitors per year, which is crazy. That's a lot of people heading their way up to Sapporo. And again, it's in June. It's probably a great place to visit in June. It's not as hot as the rest of the country. So Yosakoi dancing is usually, it's a competition where they have different teams competing for prizes maybe, but mostly pride. Winner, bragging rights. And these dances are similar to things you may see at other festivals like Awa Adori that you're going to touch on later on. They may infuse modern styles or other colorful features and costumes into these dances. So my first exposure to Yosakoi, like Soran Bushi music and dances, was actually at my elementary schools. They did a school festival once a year, and they would perform these dances at the festival. So that was where I first found out about it. And I thought, I was like, man, this music's really cool. So once I looked into it more, I was like, oh man, there's a whole festival. That's something I'd love to. Again, still haven't been to Hokkaido yet. One day, but hopefully when I do go, it's during the time when I can see this festival.
Yeah, I have to say, I actually did Yosakoi dance.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, when I was in college, it was the first year I was in college, and actually going on the second year. It was when the tsunami and earthquake hit in the area that you were in, but not during that time. So we were doing like a charity event, and so we had to do like a lot of performances and stuff like that. And so one of the performances we did was the Soran dance.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very cool experience. I will say, very strenuous dance.
Oh yeah. You need to be flexible.
Yeah, you need to be flexible because you're gonna be like bending your knees a lot. But
you get into these deep lunges, right? Like, deep lunges, and
you're
like pulling the rope, right?
The rope, yeah, you're pulling the rope, and then you're like tossing the basket over your shoulder. Yeah. It's like crazy. Yeah, it was such a fun experience, and I still, if I were to like hear the music, I could probably do the dance. But yeah, super fun.
It's a really fun music. I really liked it. Really,
very folky. It's very folky sounding. Yeah,
yeah, it's unique, and that was one of the things I heard. I'm like, I'd never heard this type of music before. It's really cool. And then I found out that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm really glad I had the opportunity to participate in something like that.
Yeah, well, I think one of my students were trying to teach me, and I was just too inflexible to do the to do the dance. So I decided to just watch. All right, but so that's our first one for June. Our second one is the Atsuta festival in Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture. This festival is the festival that it takes place at Atsuta Jingu Shrine, which is a incredibly old shrine. You know how old it is, Jen?
I mean, I would imagine it's very old, just like the rest of Japan.
1900 years old. 1900. It's been around a long time. So this festival itself is held in June 5th specifically, and is usually a signal for summer. It's basically like, hey, summer's here. It kind of features a lot of things you see at a lot of festivals, a lot of dancing, drum performances, taiko. They also have what they call kento makiwara floats, and then also a lot of festival wearers go in kimono or yukata. There's actually a dance though that is performed called the Atsuta Kagura. It's a traditional dance that is performed with flutes and drums in the background, and has been done for almost 1800 years. So it's not as old as the shrine, but it's pretty damn close in the grand scheme of things. And it's also unique to the Nagoya area. So what they do, you can kind of go during the day, but then really the attraction is at night after the sun sets. A lot of these trees in the area, the groves around there, are lit up. Not literally lit up, they're not lit on fire. They are glowing because of the 365 lanterns from those floats that are passing through. And so you can really enjoy this really awesome ambiance of just like nighttime, but kind of glowing like lantern festival floats. And then once the parade's over, you can watch a fireworks show. So it's really a fun start. It's a great festival that kicks off the summer. Because as you'll see, there's a trend in Japan with summer festivals that, not all of them, but fireworks are huge. There's a lot of firework festivals in Japan. You know, that's kind of a visual or something that a lot of people connect to summer festivals as well in Japan is fireworks. So this is kind of like that kickoff of summer. Our next one, though, is, and unfortunately was canceled this year. It's the Sanno Matsuri in Tokyo. And this one is held typically in June. And it's one that's not really held at one location. It's actually a parade of sorts, where this procession of like the shrine and people that follow along with it, they proceed through Tokyo, and they walk through Tokyo through a variety of areas. They start at Hiei Shrine and end at Hiei Shrine, but they go on a path that goes through the Yotsuya area, Yasukuni Jinja. They pass in front of the Imperial Palace, and along the way they make stops and do things at certain locations. They'll pass by Tokyo Station, Nihonbashi, Ginza, and Shinbashi before heading back to Hiei Shrine. It's this Hiei Shrine is important because it enshrines the guardian deity of Tokyo. So it's kind of like seen as a festival that pays tribute to this deity that protects the city. And that's why they parade through the city. You know, the floats themselves is about, I don't know how many floats there are, but again, like I said, there's about approximately 500 people that are part of this. And it is scaled down more recently because they don't want to block off traffic for too long. It is a 9-hour parade or procession. So it goes for the most part of the day, winding through the city. So they can't really block off traffic and impact businesses too much. So they've kind of scaled down from what it used to be. I'd never heard of this until I was starting to research for this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and apparently it's one of the top 3 festivals in Tokyo. And only held, the full version of this festival is only held in even numbered years. So in the odd number years, they do a more scaled down version of this festival. I'm assuming when I was doing my research, it didn't really say. I probably could have found it if I had dug a little deeper. But yeah, I would assume that maybe that scaled down version is more in the Hiei Shrine community area. Maybe not so much of a big procession through the city, again, because they want to avoid impacting businesses and traffic and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's something. Again, I don't normally go in June, but if I'm in Tokyo in June, I feel like it's one that you could probably easily catch. Probably. Since it does pass through the city. You don't have to go to one specific place.
Well, if it's there next year, it's going to be the smaller one since it'll be
right, exactly, next 2023. Yeah. So they'll scale it down.
Yeah.
But that's the 3 that I wanted to cover for June. Before we move on to July, did you have any thoughts on any of those? Any of those kind of piqued your interest outside of obviously the Yosakoi, since you've done the dance before?
Yeah, no, obviously the Hokkaido one. I think we've discussed it in season 2 that all of us are kind of like wanting to go to Hokkaido when we did our Hokkaido travel episode. So
right.
That's definitely on my to-do list.
Definitely.
But to start off July,
yeah.
I want to take over for July for this first part because it's probably one of the most famous festivals in Japan, honestly. And that is the Gion Matsuri that is in Kyoto, Japan. You know, Kyoto is already a tourist city, obviously. And, you know, this festival that happens in July just brings in way more tourists than you can imagine. So typically the Gion Matsuri is celebrated all July long. So you can catch something for the Gion Festival in any time in July. You know, the first week of July, it's usually like small neighborhood processions of floats. And this Gion Matsuri is associated with Yosakoi Shrine.
Okay.
And so this is a Shinto, festival. And so Yosaka is in Gion, and the processions, especially the main parades, they really stick to the Gion district. So for those of you who are really into Kyoto like I am, you'll probably know these streets that I'm about to say. The Karasuma and Shijo streets, that's pretty much where the procession is displayed. Obviously, a lot of tourists go to this festival, but not only tourists, also the local tourists. So let me just say, if you really need a plan if you are going to stay in Kyoto for the Gion Festival, because there's a lot more people in Kyoto during this time. So that means the public transportation is going to be hell. Both the subway, both the trains, both the local buses. So definitely just try not to be discouraged trying to get around the city. But it's very, very cool. The floats are they are huge. A lot of them are pulled by most of them are on wheels, so not a lot of people are like carrying the bigger floats. And then of course they have all the floats on display more towards the end of the festival. So if you didn't get to go to the parades, you can always just see them out on display as well. But yeah, it's a really fun one, really, really big, really, really popular. And then, like I said, it's all through July, so there's always something going on with it. So you can always catch it at some point. And it's supposed to be happening this year.
Yeah,
for
I was about to
2022.
say.
So
I was wondering how this year, if it's going to be super crowded. I know obviously tourists aren't going to be there, from international tourists aren't going to be there. But I feel like Kyoto, while it has been less crowded due to lack of international tourists, I wonder a lot of domestic travelers are going to start coming in to see it, because I'm sure a lot of people stayed away.
I feel like they are, because
yeah.
I usually so I've never personally been to the Gion Festival, because I usually get out of Kyoto during that time, because I know how crazy it gets. And it's not even crazy because of tourists. It's crazy because of the locals and the like local tourists. Yeah. So I usually get out of Kyoto because it gets really insane. But I mean, it's supposed to be happening this year, along with the 2 large float processions. So I'm going to assume that a lot of Japanese tourists are going to head to Kyoto in July.
It might be a unique opportunity for them to do it, to check it out while it's not inundated with foreign tourists during the time. Maybe. Yeah. Might as well take advantage of the opportunity while you can.
Yeah, why not?
So you had mentioned this is one of Japan's biggest, Gion Matsuri is like one of the biggest festivals in Japan. Another one that is one of the biggest festivals in Japan, there's like 3. I forget what the third one is, but it's like Gion, Tenjin Matsuri in Osaka is the next one we're going to talk about. And I don't remember the other one. I apologize. But this one, Tenjin Matsuri, takes place July 24th and 25th of every year. And while the main celebrations take place on the second day, there is a kind of like a ritual that takes place at Tenmangu Shrine. And then there's some other smaller places like where they do some prayers at the river for peace and prosperity and safety of Osaka. That all takes place on the 24th. But the big stuff, the things that a lot of people really want to see, are on July 25th. And that is a procession that starts from Tenmangu Shrine and goes through the streets of Osaka. It's led by a lot of guys or girls that are drumming. They're wearing red hats, proceeding through the city. And then that procession kind of winds its way through the city, features a lot of different costumed people and characters that are part of, like the, I don't want to say gods, but, different characters from mythology. I don't even know if I want to say mythology, but just characters in general that are associated with this festival. Once the procession arrives at Okawa River, usually around 6 o'clock at night, they carry the shrine onto the boats, and then those boats are then paraded up and down the river, along with some other stage boats along them. This will continue throughout the night and goes up until about 7:30, 8 o'clock when the fireworks start. And then those fireworks last for hours, until about 9 o'clock. So it's a fun little full day festival. And a lot of these kind of procession ones do end up being a long kind of a marathon. Not a literal marathon, but like just if you want to watch it from the start to finish, you have to follow it around. But it's one of those things that the fireworks display is phenomenal, especially with the backdrop of, the illuminated boats with the shrines on them and everything. It's very unique. And again, something a lot of people in Japan and around the world travel to Osaka to see in July. But there's actually a similar one that is done in Matsue City in Shimane. And the reason why I'm bringing this one up is because Matsue City, as we mentioned back in season 1, is our sister city for New Orleans. And I unfortunately haven't been able to see this festival in person. But they have Shirakata Tenmangu Festival, which takes place, unfortunately, the same 2 days. It takes place July 24th and 25th. But it's similar in that they proceed through the city, multiple shrines carried through the city towards Matsue Castle. And then they kind of park it there at the castle for the evening. And then on the 25th, or after they do some ritual prayers and whatnot on the beginning of the festival, they bring the shrine back to where it started. And then they have some smaller shrines that are carried by local children too. But most people try to attend, and the bigger crowds go on the 24th because that is the more shrines that are being transported about. There's a lot of you might actually, one of these cool things about these omikoshi festivals is that sometimes you can hop in or get pulled in. I've been pulled into omikoshi festivals, mostly in Iwaki, but sometimes if you're visiting, you catch somebody's eye, they may try to pull you in to participate. So it's kind of one of those cool things. You might actually get an opportunity to partake in that festival. So it's a little different because it isn't land and water like the Osaka one, but it does involve a 2-day event on the same days where they bring it to one location and leave it and then bring it back.
Yeah, so pretty much like if you're in like the lower part of the main island of Japan, probably go visit Matsue City in Shimane. But if you're not in that area, I kind of just noticed because you were talking about dates. Technically, Kansai, if you're staying in the Kansai area in like mid-July, you could do the Gion festival in like the middle of July because it's like kind of like July like 14th and 15th, I think.
Yeah.
That the big like parade processions happen. And then the next week you go over to Osaka and you enjoy another festival. So you kind of get like a really good summer festival thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if, let's say, after you get all that, you get your fill of portable shrines and everything, those processions, and you just want to have a laid back festival you want to go to. Now, I say laid back. It's really not laid back because it's so crowded, at least when I went. But if you want to go up to Tokyo, you can go to the Sumidagawa Fireworks Festival. This happens at the last Saturday of every July. You know, the Sumida River is lit up by one of the largest fireworks shows that you'll ever see. It's insane. But it's also, because it's so insane, the crowds are insane. And it's incredibly packed. So, but the good thing is that there's a lot of viewing areas that you can go to. It's in the Asakusa area. There's a couple parks. There's other places that you can go to watch. Prepare yourself for crowds, but there are a lot of food booths along the way, or a lot of opportunities to get, drinks or foods from that area. And there's a lot of sights to see in Asakusa, so you can kind of do that during the day in preparation for the festival, and then kind of stick out, your evening, find a spot to camp out at, grab a tarp and throw it down and park it for a few hours so you can enjoy the fireworks show. And again, it's one of the biggest ones in Japan, if not the biggest. I would definitely recommend seeing it at least once to experience it because it was pretty cool. And last is the Soma Nomaoi. Oh my god, I can't pronounce this. Soma Nomaoi festival in Soma City in Fukushima Prefecture. And this one's really different from the other ones we've talked about. It's not a temple procession. It's not a fireworks festival. This is actually folks dressed up in samurai attire, and they are on horseback doing archery. Soma area is actually really known for horse breeding and horses in general, horse riding and whatnot. So this is one of their pride and joy festivals of the year. It takes place the last week of July, and it's one of those areas too that was severely impacted by the earthquakes. I say earthquakes because that we've had the one obviously in 2011, but even more recently we had some pretty big ones. So these areas have been impacted, and I know the communities have definitely been bouncing back. And this is a big time tourism opportunity for their city to attract a lot of visitors. And I wanted to just bring it up because I think it's one of those ones I never had a chance to get to while I was in Japan, and I regret it because I really wish I could have. And while I am going back in July this year, maybe I'll try to go. I don't know. Depends how jet lag's treating me and where the hell I am at the end of July and if it's still going on. It might be after or before, or it might be before I arrive. But we'll see. I would love to go. I've been to a couple of like samurai themed festivals in Japan. One specifically in Aizuwakamatsu in Fukushima, and that was fantastic. And I think this one would be really cool to see in person as well.
Yeah, I know Kyoto has something like this, but it's in the fall, not the summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Awesome. Well, that's all we had for July. We had a few more than July than we did for June, because again, July is kind of like the lead into the big month of August, which we're going to tap on now. But did you have any other things you want to bring up before we move on to August, Jen?
No, but I will say, this section of like summer festivals that we're about to talk about for August is probably ones that a lot of people have heard of, because like I said in the beginning of the podcast episode, when you think summer festivals, for some reason tourists always think of August as being the month for summer festivals.
Yeah.
So, you may have heard about some of these.
Yeah, and I mean, the first one I'm sure everyone's heard of. Maybe not everybody, but most people. It is one of the, I would say it's the largest festival in Japan, probably, or at least in the same bucket as Gion and Tenjin. But that's the Nebuta Matsuri. It takes place in Aomori City, and it's held every year from August 2nd to August 7th. So basically that first week of August. What this festival is it features a wide variety of floats, massive floats. I'm talking, 9 meters, or it's like 28, 29 feet long. And, they could be 5 meters high. So you're looking at 16, 17 feet tall. Really big floats that are kind of they depict gods, historical figures, mythological figures from Japanese or Chinese culture, kabuki actors, even characters from TV shows. The variety of stuff. These are wireframe floats that take about a year to produce and design. And then those are covered, that wireframe is then covered in washi paper. So it's kind of a translucent paper that glows really nicely when you have like lighting underneath it. These floats are paraded through the city daily in addition to taiko drums and musicians and dancers that kind of ride on the float or go behind it or kind of pulled behind it on like a little like kind of cart. So each night, these floats will be paraded through the street, except on the 7th. The 7th is the only day when the parades are held, specifically in the afternoon. The floats are pushed along the street by human power. So they kind of, there's no horses, it's humans navigating or pushing these floats. And they spin around corners in the streets. It's pretty fun. If you've been to Mardi Gras parades, obviously, yeah. I kind of equate it to a Mardi Gras parade, in that you have these giant floats that are navigating, making these tight turns. You have bands and dancers in between the floats. So it really does, minus the beads and, some indecency.
Well, and another thing that reminds me of Mardi Gras with Nebuta Matsuri is that the floats, after they're done using them for the festival, they're out on display at a museum. Yeah. That's kind of how our floats are. We have like a thing where you
Mardi
can go
World,
and
right?
Mardi Gras World. You can go and see Mardi Gras floats that's not during Mardi Gras. So say you're not able to travel to Japan during the summer and you never get to catch it, but maybe you're in Aomori during, I don't know, the fall. Go to that museum, check out these floats. Really amazing. The artistic craft is just out of this world.
Yeah, and the thing too is you can actually go and check out the floats. They have in like their kind of not storage, but like where they store them during the day before the parades. On the day of the parades, you can actually go and look at the floats and take pictures and whatnot. Kind of check everything out before. They're not going to be as lit up. They're just going to be, as is. But I mean, It's so cool. I thought it was one of the coolest festivals that I'd been to in Japan. I went, it was one of the classic get on a 6 a.m. bus from Iwaki to drive 7 or 8 hours north, and then get out at what would that be, 2 p.m. at that point. 2 p.m., go eat lunch, go look around at the festival, grab a quick bite to eat for dinner, watch the parade happen, go to the bathroom, and then get back on a night bus and ride back to Iwaki. It was literally like a day trip. But it was a little quick for my liking. They have some really awesome souvenirs. I will have to take a picture of it and put it on our social media when this episode comes out. But you can pick up these really awesome hand-painted prints that look like the floats. And I'll show you the picture later on, Jen. But also, I'll take a picture of it and have it hanging on my wall in my office. So it's really cool. You can get some really nice artwork while you're there. Great souvenirs.
Yeah, and one of the other like really big August festivals, which is probably so well known that other cities have tried to. I mean, I don't mean to say in a bad way, but they try to copy it. And
there's like different legs of it, right? That happen all over the country.
All over the country. The people have tried to like copy this festival, but it's not as good as the original. And that is the Awa Odori. This is in Tokushima City, in Shikoku, the island that we've discussed in quite a few of our other travel episodes. So even though Shikoku is not as well traveled by tourists, the locals know this is the festival. the energy, the spirit. It is so amazing. I usually don't stick around in August, like traveling during the summer in Japan. I usually leave by that time. But this is probably, if I had to ever stay for August, this is the festival that I want to go to. This festival is most famous for, its dance. And it's held in mid-August. So it's not in early August. So you kind of have to stay a little bit more. So it's very much in the Obon season. And this dance, you can find this dance probably online if you just YouTube it, honestly. You could even learn it yourself if you really wanted to.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's tutorials out there.
And then like if you're in the Tokyo area, I think there are like some classes that you can take.
Oh, okay.
To learn the dance, because Tokyo tries to copy it for their festival. But it's so amazing, and let me just tell you, this is such a highly rated festival for the locals that tourists, you will have difficulty booking a hotel in this city because it is just tight. Like, you have to book hotels in advance, like months out, in order to be able to stay in the city to experience the festival. But yeah, no, this dance, it's really amazing. It's like all these women are wearing like cotton, the yukata, and they wear their hapi as well. It's very much a group dance, so you'll see them all in sync, and it's really, really amazing to see because there's like a ton of them just lined up in a row, parading in the streets and in the downtown area. And it is just so cool. I really want to see it one day. Like, I've seen it online and it looks so cool, but I can only imagine what it looks like in person.
Yeah, and one thing, those dancing groups, they're called Ren. And I mean, you can range from a group of people that is like, hey, 2 days before the event, be like, I want to enter the event. I want to enter the Awadori, and like you have your group. Or, I mean, these are like, they have groups that literally dedicate themselves to practicing year round for doing this.
Definitely, yeah.
Coming from not only Tokushima, but other parts of Japan. And there are even like groups that come from like the US or other countries to participate. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. And one thing like you had mentioned about the yukata, like each group kind of distinguishes themselves from the others by variations and variants of their uniforms. So while everyone's kind of wearing the same stuff, it just depends. It varies from group to group. And another thing, I know they have like those hats, like kind of like half circle. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah,
really,
they're kind of like
talking about though. Like,
it's kind of like a pointed hat. Yeah, it looks like a boat.
Yeah, but those are like, I feel like I went to, back when I lived in Tokyo, there was a restaurant that was like a Tokushima ramen / cuisine restaurant, and I didn't know it at first. I found that out later on, but I saw that they had posters all the time about awa odori all the time, and it would always be like kind of like your stereotypical like little hat and like a dancer and a yukata and everything. And so that was my first exposure to it. And I was like, man, what is that? And then I kind of like would see things on whether it be YouTube or the TV about it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I actually, as I was starting to learn more kanji, I realized that that's what the posters in the restaurant were advertising.
Well, Doug, I have to tell you something very disappointing for you. I don't think this is a dance for you, because once again, it's a lot of bending of the knees for this dance.
I mean, I can bend my knees. It's just I don't know if like
you gotta go real low with these dances.
I gotta really stretch out,
Yeah.
So you mentioned when we're talking about this, Bon Odori, or Bon, like Obon season, which takes place in the middle of August. And I wanted to mention this. We're not going to spend too much time on it, because I feel like Obon itself is a nationwide, I don't want to say festival, but like a time of year when everyone kind of goes home and pays their respects to their ancestors and whatnot. Yeah. And Bon Odori, which are basically like Obon dances, take place all over the world, all over the country. Everywhere across Japan will have their own iterations of Obon festivals or dances. Sometimes they have like in Iwaki, they have like jangara, which is like these little drummers. They kind of they parade around to homes and kind of, I forget if they guide the spirit over or they just kind of like call out, or visit people who've like lost someone that year or something like that, to pay homage. But they have a lot of festivals that take place in the streets, where they'll do similar dances. Like Iwaki used to have Iwaki Odori, which was like just before Obon. And it's kind of similar to the Awa Dori, where it's just, again, the main parts of the street, but they would have like legs throughout different areas of the city. They would have like the main strip, and then other smaller communities would have there's smaller instances of it. But this is something that takes place all over the country. They have, sometimes whether it's in the street, they may have shrines or nearby a station, or they'll have a portable shrine or something. Like they have like kaiten, what's it called? The rotating shrines, where that kind of shrines rotate and has like a stage around it, and then people dance on the stage, but also around the shrine. Exactly, there's a lot of different variations to this, and it takes place pretty much all over the country. So if you are in Japan during that time, and going to be in a certain area in the middle of August, you may want to check out and just Google like Obon or Bonodori or Obon Festival or something like that, to see what may be going on in that town. That's my recommendation in that area, anywhere in the country, because you'll probably be able to find something and maybe get a unique glimpse into some area that or something you wouldn't have normally seen anywhere else.
Yeah, and actually another festival during this time that is exactly like Obon in the sense where it's celebrated all over Japan is the Tanabata Festival, right?
Yeah, and that one takes place, like you said, it takes place everywhere. But
it does. It's celebrated everywhere.
It's unique though, because some places celebrate in August, and the big one is Sendai. Sendai in Miyagi Prefecture is like where that's what it's known for Tanabata Festival, and it takes place in August. And I know Iwaki is literally just down the train line from it, a couple hours, so they also celebrate in August as well. But a lot of other places celebrate sometimes in July. It just depends.
They do. Yeah.
But Tanabata itself, it's. Do you know the
the story?
The story of it.
Yeah, I know the story of it.
Well, why don't you share it? Because I can't remember all the details.
Oh Jesus! Well, I don't know the names, but pretty much this festival, it's celebrating the reunion of this couple, this heavenly couple that is reunited only one time a year. Yeah. And so that's kind of the celebration of like where the story comes from, but how it translates to real life is, it's very much a festival of like wishing. That's very much the theme is like, oh, you write down your wish and you put it on this like is it bamboo? Is it a bamboo kind of tree?
Yeah, it's like a bamboo shoot. Like, I don't know if shoot is the right word, but like a branch. Yeah, and like the theme is like wishing, so like very much like when you see decorations, like a lot of people will have like stars as the decorations for Tanabata. Mm-hmm. And like Doug said, it's celebrated everywhere, so some places do start like in July. I can vouch that in like the Hiroshima area, and that's celebrated in July. I remember going to Hiroshima in July, and I remember so cute and funny. At the hotel I was staying at, they had a little tree with all the little Tanabata wishes on paper tied to it. And then I also visited the Pokemon Center in Hiroshima, and they also had a Tanabata tree. It was so cute. I feel like everywhere, like convenience stores, like everywhere has it. And you have the little tanzaku is what they're called, the little pieces of paper that kind of you could write your wishes down. I know my son did one last summer at a party he went to. They did that as part of like the party. Which is and cool.
Like even big places, so like I visited Tokyo Disneyland in July, and they even were celebrating Tanabata. They had a big theme when you entered Disneyland, and they had like a big display, and they had the characters dressed like very differently than usual. So it's really cool how they celebrated Tanabata. It's very much an all over Japan kind of place. But like Doug said, specifically in August in Miyagi Prefecture in Sendai.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think if you're going to go check a place out for it, that's where I would recommend going. I mean, you can go to other places, but that's what the big one is in Sendai.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of it for our August ones. And that covers our summer, our Natsu Matsuri Mania. But yeah, that like, I know you mentioned your personal favorites or things that you want to see or have seen in person. Is there one, let's say, if you had to pick one festival out that you really want to see, Jen, which one would you want to go to the most?
I mean, realistically, I could just stay in Kyoto for Gion.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm in Japan during early July. I could just stay in Kyoto and see it. At least the smaller processions.
Yeah.
So realistically, Kyoto would probably be the one that I would do. But what I would like to do, but would definitely be kind of an issue because I don't stay for that long. And then, like, it's really hard because, like, I work during June. But I would really like to go up to Hokkaido for the Soran festival. But, yeah, it's really hard for me to get away from the job in June. So that kind of is impossible for me. Yeah. And then, like I said, like, I like the Owa Odori. I love it. I love the concept of, like, all the dancers. But I don't stay in August. I leave. So, yeah. No, Kyoto just seems to be the most realistic for me, honestly.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you said have you had experiences in any particular, like I think like Tanabata is the one that seems like the one that you've kind of experienced the most personally?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, not the Sendai one that's popular in August, but I've been around in July and I traveled, and like I said, it seems like the smaller celebration of Tanabata, the little wishing kind of things. I've participated in that.
Nice. Yeah, I would say that probably for me, I really would like to see, just because I've been so close to it so many times and never went, the Soma Nomaoi. I need to learn how to pronounce it before I go see it. But the horseback archery festival, I think, would be really cool to see. It's different, something I haven't. I've been to a lot of the portable shrine ones. I've been to a lot of the firework festivals. So those, obviously, I would like to see all of them and go to all the ones that we've talked about. But I really would like to see that archery one. I think that'd be really cool and different.
Yeah, it sounds cool. I mean, like I said, there's one in Kyoto during fall. It seems really cool. So, I mean, I feel like you would probably enjoy it, the one in Fukushima.
Yeah. And as for ones that I've been, my personal favorite, I'm privy to my local small town festivals. But when we go back and visit my wife's family in her town by the station that she lives in, or they don't live in the station. The town they live in by the station. There we go. That's how they have like a little festival there. And it's really very small. It's literally maybe like a block, but it's really nice, really cute, quaint, and a small town vibe, which I really enjoy. I think it's really cool. And then obviously I go back to where I used to live in Iwaki, the Yumoto, like they have like a Yumoto leg of the Iwaki Odori that takes place. And I like to go back there because it's funny. The convenience store right outside the station is still run by the lady that used to be there when I was there. So last time I went back in 2019, I walked in and she like triple taked when I walked in the door. She's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" like, why are you here? And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just visiting." Cause like she hadn't seen me in like 10 years. So it was pretty funny. And then I can go back and see some friends and folks over there in Iwaki. So those are probably my personal favorites just because I have like nostalgia attached, like emotional attachment to them.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, hopefully this episode will at least inspire some folks to go check out some of these summer festivals. We gave you a few. And again, if you want to look up some more for specific times you're traveling, Google is your friend. You can find out a lot of information. Sometimes it's in Japanese, and if you could read Japanese, it's definitely beneficial to pull up city calendars and stuff. You can kind of see what's going on. But I feel like those Japan travel websites do a pretty good job of advertising local festivals.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any closing remarks, Jen, before we wrap up?
Just hope that our listeners, really find appreciation of visiting Japan during the summer now that they've learned about the whole summer festival season. Because like I said, I feel like the summer season is very underrated for tourism.
Yeah. And just bookmark that obviously the summer may be tough for international travelers to get over there, to travel freely to different venues for festivals and whatnot. So, bookmark this podcast for next summer when you're planning your trip for next summer. And hopefully this provided some insight into some places you may want to check out. And that's it for this week's episode. Thank you for tuning into the Krewe of Japan podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode and maybe learned a little bit about Japanese festivals that take place during the summer. Next time you travel to Japan in the summer, try and plan a leg of your trip around one of these big festivals. I'm guaranteeing you'll have a good time. What's your favorite summer festival? Have a local festival gem you want to share with the world? Share with us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Krewe of Japan Podcast. That's at KREWEOFJAPANPODCAST, Instagram, right there. Krewe of Japan Podcast on Facebook. And then @ KREWEOFJAPAN, Krewe of Japan on Twitter. While you're there, give us a follow, like, share, retweet, comment. What else do we got? I don't even know. But yeah, interact with us. We want to interact with you guys. We want to hear from you guys. We want to do more with you guys. Keep in touch. Let us know how we're doing with the podcast. Or maybe you prefer to provide feedback in a more private setting. Send us an email at kreweofjapanpodcast@gmail.com. That's KREWEOFJAPANPODCAST@gmail.com. Speaking of feedback, if you're enjoying what you're listening to today, feel free to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast streaming app. We're trying to bump up that rating, y'all. But any and all support, as always, is greatly appreciated. That's it for today. Hope you had fun at the festivals. See you next time.